Let's try to do this the cheap and dirty way.
This is our way of doing it, not the proper way.
I said molly lube.
What's up, everybody? Today on Cars and Cameras, we have a brand new budget Tillotson performance kit. We call it the Stage 1.5. This was actually our idea that we brought to Go Power Sports, and they loved it, so it's being sold on their website. In today's video, we're going to show you how to install it, and we're going to do some before and after performance testing to show seat of the pants exactly what you're getting. But the key components of this kit are, one, to get you billet parts on a budget to take you to that next performance threshold on a budget. So we're going to get into exactly what all is in the kit a little bit later on in the installation, but first we need to get some baseline performance testing around the Grand Prix.
Looks pretty slick.
We gave ourselves a few practice laps to get up to speed before recording our lap times. Our test vehicle is a Megamoto 212 mini bike that's stock except for an air filter, carburetor jet, and a header.
Ooh, that brake's touchy. Got to ease up on that.
Once we were all reacquainted with the bike and felt comfortable, we set up to lay down some hot laps.
Ready? Yeah. On your mark, get set, go!
Yeah, the pig does can definitely. I am messing up this turn.
Here we go, up the hill. A lot of brakes.
Get you up the hill. Oh, I saw air on that one. The difference between standing up and sitting down. Woo, sketchy. Whoa!
Lap times. Isaac ran a
104.25.
Oh!
Hey, no cheating.
Okay. John ran a
1.
Okay.
Okay,
nice.
4.
Whoa!
0.61.
Holy moly.
Wow.
That was
Charles, what do you got, bud?
He got a 1.
Yep. Okay.
7.25.
Nice.
All right.
So we were all within 3 seconds of one another. We're going to average our times and then start on the installation. So what's the purpose of the Stage 1.5 kit? It's billet on a budget. The 1.5 is that perfect sweet spot in between the Stage 1 being the header, air filter, and carburetor jet, and then your full-on billet flywheel, billet rod, big camshaft valve springs that you usually see in your Stage 2. So the 1.5 comes with a Mod 2 camshaft, a billet connecting rod, a side cover gasket, and a new spark plug. So you're going to get a good bump in performance over the Stage 1, but you're at half the cost of a full-on Stage 2 kit. So the goals of the Stage 1.5 kit are 1, affordability, 2, easy DIY installation, and 3, a good noticeable seat of the pants power increase over your Stage 1. So now we're going to be removing the governor and installing the Stage 1.5 kit, showing you guys just how to do it, and then running it again. One important thing to note before we get started on this build is that this 1.5 kit is for the Tillotson 212 only, the pull start and electric start models. That's because the Tillotson has a 10,000 RPM rated flywheel from the factory and upgraded valve springs for a little more RPM. So it's a safety and performance thing why you have to use the Tillotson and not a Predator for the Stage 1.5. Here's a list of tools you'll need to complete this installation, the majority of which are very common. The only specialty items you'll need are a plasti gauge, a 1/4 inch and 3/8 inch drive torque wrench, feeler gauges, and a return spring for the governor arm. They can all be found for under $100. I'll link a few options down in the video description.
So we're going to be removing the side cover on this engine and getting to our brand new parts. Now we're going to be installing these parts the most DIY way available. I mean, the easiest way for y'all. And Charles, he's going to be removing the spark plug so we can get this thing on top dead center, because you don't want to pull the side cover off and rotate the engine, because the camshaft is under pressure and we don't want to damage anything. So after you, buddy.
And getting it on top dead center basically relieves the pressure off the cam, and the pressure comes from the valve springs.
Yes.
Not saying you didn't, but just for anybody that is wanting to catch up. So on top dead center, both valves are shut and the push rods have no tension. That's where you do your valve adjustment. So we're gonna remove the spark plug. A lot of threads. Looks like it's got a good burn. After removing the spark plug, you're going to want a flashlight to make sure that the piston is all the way up to the top of the cylinder, and you can do that with a screwdriver.
Now, it does come up on 2 separate occasions.
It does,
because it's a 4-stroke. So you want to come up on the compression stroke.
How do you know?
Basically, you can pull the engine over with your finger over the hole. And when you feel it starting to blow your finger off, then you take your finger off and you put the screwdriver in there and you take it all the way to the top.
So when it starts applying pressure on your finger,
yes,
that means it's coming
on the
up,
compression stroke.
and when it gets to the top, that's top dead center.
Yes.
All right, makes sense.
So we're going to do that.
There it goes. Okay, that was it. I give it a rocket back. Oh, see, going down.
So I got to go backwards.
Yep, you're good. Yep. Oh, no. You went too far.
Too far.
It's okay. I think this is for... There we go.
Now that we've verified that this is on top dead center, we're going to be removing the exhaust so we can get to the valve cover real easy, because with it on top dead center, both of the valves are shut on this engine. We'll be able to remove the push rods out of this engine, so when we remove the side cover and the camshaft, the push rods aren't going to be falling out and all that stuff. So it's pretty easy. That's why I love these engines.
Broke.
Is it broken?
Yeah.
Well,
No big deal.
Horsepower,
what happens
boys.
on race bikes.
Yeah.
Steel toes.
You got to carefully remove this so we don't drop a washer down in the exhaust port of this engine.
Now to remove the valve cover, you need an 8mm and a ratchet. We're going to use an electric ratchet for
Speed.
For speed. As I miss.
Just give it a little shock to hopefully save the gasket.
Hey.
Save the gasket. I think I saved the gasket.
You did. All right.
All right, let's try to do this the cheap and dirty way. You're going to put a little bit of pressure on the spring right here. This is the valve spring. So you put pressure on it, and then the push rod tube comes out.
You want to keep track of which one comes on the intake and exhaust.
That's correct. And what I do is I just lay it down on a piece of paper, and you can label it. I for intake, E for exhaust, T for top, B for bottom. Now that we got the push rods out, I'm going to just install, thank you, the valve cover just to keep it up there to keep the dirt out from this engine.
Yeah, just finger tighten a couple of bolts in there.
Yep. Now we're going to be removing the side cover. There's 6 10mm bolts. Pretty easy. And you want to be very careful on the side cover because you don't want to rip the gasket, although it doesn't matter because the kit comes with a gasket, but I really like, oh, we're good. I really like saving these old gaskets. We've had a lot of good luck on reusing the gaskets for our future builds.
Mini-me was here.
Oh, look. We're on top dead center because the marks lined up. Now, if you didn't get it on top dead center, this round circle would have been over here in this section over here. So we know we're at top dead center here. Let's remove the camshaft. It's really easy. And just be ready for a couple of pieces to fall out, which it didn't. These are our push rods.
Lifters.
Yeah,
Or
flat tappet.
Or flat tappet. Yeah. You can either leave it in, or you can take them all the way out. As long as they don't fall in there, I think it's going to fall in there. I'm going to line these up with,
Just like your push rods.
yeah, just the way they came out. So, here's our camshaft. Looks pretty good. There's our little mechanism for our compression release. This makes it easier for the pull start on your engine. If your valves are adjusted correctly, you don't have that real sharp pull when you go to crank this thing up because this is working. What it is that little mechanism right there. As our lifter, or little flat tappet thing here, as it rotates here, it hits that piece and it actually lifts it just the tiniest little bit, allowing the compression to escape through the exhaust. As this rotates, when you crank it over, this is a weight right here. When it rotates, that little piece moves out of the way and you have all of your compression.
Cool.
So now that we have the side cover off, it's always a good idea to take a look around on the inside and look for anything unusual, like big old metal chunks or cracks or anything unusual. This thing looks pretty good on the inside. I don't see anything to be worried about. So I'm going to be rotating the crankshaft. Now I'm doing this with the spark plug out because it makes it easier to turn. I've got two 10mm bolts there that I'm going to be removing, and we're going to be showing you how to install a rod on a piston without taking the piston out of the block.
Any excessive wear?
I don't see anything unusual.
I guess this is a good time to...
I think this was a good engine to begin with.
And what Isaac's talking about is, you want to look, because there's no bearing in here. It's basically just the cap and the oil and the crankshaft are all that's there. And you want to basically look to see if there's been any heavy scoring or scratches or anything. And everything looks like it's wearing normal. Nothing that you can catch your fingernail on. Yeah.
Boys, can we even take this pin out with the crankshaft in? Might have to remove the flywheel. Let's find out. Yep. So before we can drop it down enough, we have to remove the flywheel.
If yours is the electric start model, you're going to want to remove your coil, because if you look at the teeth behind there, when you pull this flywheel off, it'll actually catch on your coil, and you really don't want to damage your block there, because it's over. Party's over. You break that. So just you can either remove the coil, or you can just kind of gap it all the way and then tighten it back up. But we're going to remove it just to be safe. That one goes on the flywheel, and this keeps the the fins in place.
You know what I've heard? You knock out every other fin.
Oh, that I definitely did that.
Less wind resistance, more horsepower.
Yep. We could do that. Why not? Get the 10 snips out. All right. So now you don't let this nut go too far, because you're going to want it to thread back on, and you put it on just enough, not all the way tight, but you put it on to where it's flush with the outside of the crankshaft. And you're going to need a hammer and a pry bar. This is our way of doing it, not the proper way. So the proper way to remove a flywheel, at least in my experience, would be a 3-jaw puller. But we've built countless engines and gotten the flywheels off with the hammer and pry bar trick, so I'm fully confident in this DIY trick. You don't want to get on your magnets and your coil back there, but you also want to remember that you want to choose a good sturdy spot on the block. See, like this spot, this is real thin. Wouldn't recommend getting behind that and prying on there. Probably use the jug right here. See how it's nice and flat, good fins are there, nice and supportive. And you definitely want to C-clamp the block to the table, because if you don't have that, you just put it on the ground and stand on it. All right, so just moderate amount of pressure, just kind of holding it there, and then give it a whack dead center. And that should, if it took up the gap, that should have come off. And it was a good solid whack, so let's see. Oh yeah. Nice. Oh, I think the magnets have got me. Wow, we brought Busco with us. All right.
And we're going to need to clean all this off as well, because we're going to be removing that crankshaft.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so let's get all this dirt cleaned up before we send this part back into the engine. So the rod cap is off, and what you're going to want to do to remove the rest of the rotating assembly is to use the crankshaft to push the connecting rod and the piston all the way as high as it will go. Don't push it with your hands, use the rotating assembly. And then you can get the crank journal out of the rod, and you can position it just right. See how I have it, the weight's down over here, and the top of the crankshaft there. And look at that, it walks right past everything. And there's the governor gear, and then your cam gear.
So we're going to show you 2 different ways how to remove this governor. One of them is removing the sprocket on the crankshaft, and the other way is using a pair of pliers and a couple of screwdrivers or a pick to remove the clip on the plastic gear in here. So first things first, let's knock off that gear.
Yep, removing this will be the easier way. Removing this and the governor wheel in there will be the more difficult but more thorough way.
Yeah.
So pick your own adventure.
I'm going to pick doing the gear on that. So I'm going to be using like a chisel or this is kind of like a pry bar, a stubby pry bar, and a hammer. And in the back there, the vise. The vise. We have the crankshaft nut on here in the vise. As you can see, I can rotate the crankshaft. And I'm going to get this punch right here, and I'm going to knock it loose, a little bit at a time. Should be one more knock, and it ought to be off.
Hey!
There it is. Awesome.
That's trophy
and now
material.
you got a nice little necklace piece. So it's off. Let's go back over there and take out the plastic gear. So we just removed the gear off the crankshaft. I think that's a really good way of eliminating the governor. We're going to show you the other way to eliminate it. Right in here, we've got our little plastic wheel in here, and as it spins, it's got a couple of weights that get thrown out. When they get thrown out, these little weights right here, they press on the linkage.
Yeah, they pick up on the plastic
they
rod in the center.
Yeah.
If you push those weights out, they pick up the thing in the center.
It pushes a little plunger out
and fights,
which pulls back on the throttle, and the throttle is operated with a spring. So it allows the linkage to pull out. The throttle gets pulled back into the idle position until the RPM comes down. They release and it picks up the speed again. So
the governor is actually fighting you with your throttle.
Yeah. So
great.
to do this, oh yeah, by the way, on both of these, you're going to have to add a return spring to your throttle linkage. Otherwise, when you go to crank it up, you're going to be wide open heading for your parents' car, the woods, or you might even be on it and go for one heck of a ride. So we're going to start by removing the linkage on the top of the engine here.
Whoops.
Just throw your wrench wherever, it'll be fine. And when I get a flathead or this, I'll be able to spread it and pull it off. We've got this retainer spring or clip right here. Can't even talk. Pull it out really easy.
Give that a good wipe down.
And the linkage can pull right on out.
Yeah.
Bada boom, bada bing. Now, at this point, you can just cut this little arm off, and you can reinstall it, and it's going to be unhooked.
And that's probably what we're going to do, because
There it is.
not everybody has a tap and die set, and if you don't want to introduce metal shavings into the engine, I don't blame you.
Yeah.
So putting it back, trimming it and putting it back in. And the reason why we say trim it is because once this is out of the way and the arm's back down in there, this thing, if you don't have your return spring or whatever, it can actually swing around and get into your rotating assembly.
That would be bad.
So you definitely want to trim it.
Probably going to crack the block.
Yeah, you want to trim it right above these little washer holders.
Yeah.
I call it the hockey stick.
Yeah. So now we're going to be moving on to removing this plastic gear. We've got this assembly right here, which goes in the center of this. This is what pushes on the linkage. You got this little lever. This pushes on the lever, which rotates this, which pulls on the linkage. So plastic button, washer, and then right in here is going to be a little C-clip that is going to be a real bear to get out. So we like to use 2 tiny screwdrivers to open up the gap and pull that clip and gear out of the way. And there's a washer on the back side too. Oh, safety glasses too. You need safety glasses.
He said, translation, he said you need safety glasses.
That's it right there. That little booger
Gazoon tight.
is a pain. So now I'm going to remove the gear, and there's going to be a washer underneath. You don't want to forget the washer. See, the washer's not on there.
The
But
washer is back there.
This
You want my magnet?
one of these are. One of these is magnet. I might need your magnet, sir. All right. There's the washer. Should be the only one. Wow, that's a strong magnet, Charles. Next up, we're going to be trimming this linkage, and we're going to be reinstalling it on this engine, and then we're going to move on to the rod. That easy. I'm going to clean it up on the grinder and reinstall. All right, now that I've got that installed, I'm going to be reinstalling the factory linkage, because you might be using the factory carburetor on your application, and using the factory linkage is okay, but you are going to have to install a idle return spring going from this arm this direction. You're going to have to pull it tight. So usually what we do is we go from here to like the cover. Pretty easy.
And you can find a spring for that at your local hardware store.
Sure. So we're back at the vise. We've got our crankshaft mounted in the vise, and we're going to go step by step on installing, cleaning, all that stuff, our rod on this crankshaft, and we're going to check our clearances, etc., etc. Then once everything looks good, we're going to be installing it into the engine.
So first thing you're going to want to do after you've separated the two halves, you're going to want to clean and thoroughly inspect every groove, hole, everything that the CNC machine touched, because you don't want any sort of burrs or any sort of metal debris, or I guess maybe even cutting oil or whatever they used for the machining process. But definitely want to get it cleaned up, and hopefully one of your buddies has a flashlight you can look inside all the ports with.
Now that our rod is thoroughly cleaned and checked over, look good?
Yeah,
Yeah.
looks great.
Okay, so we're going to get to the crankshaft here. So we're going to clean it with some brake clean, make sure there's no debris, and then we're going to check. In fact, let's go ahead and check the micrometer right now, and then I'll clean it afterwards because there might be some grit on this. So it says on here, on the micrometer, it needs to read 1.180 plus or minus 0.005.
You definitely don't want to slide. You want to tighten it up on there. See, look. 1.184.
1.184.
Plus or minus 0.005, right?
Yep. So we're
good.
We're good.
We are
All
good
right,
on that.
Now I'm going to open it up. They're not touching. All right. 1.183.
All right, that's fine. We are within spec.
All right. So we checked it on an X and Y axis. Now we're going to check it again.
If it is out of round by more than 0.0005 or rough to the touch, you may have to have it polished.
Yeah. And see, this is why they want you to check it, because see how I'm at a different angle right here?
Yeah.
And it's 1.181 right
Okay,
here.
but it's still within spec.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's kind of funny it's not exactly round. So to install the bearing, never press in the center of the bearing. I like to place it in there, like so, and I push down just like so. If you push in the center, you can actually fold it in some and cause the bearing to be a little loose in the cap. And beam. I got it.
I know, I learned that today. I didn't.
All right.
Once they're separated, cap and beam, but
Yeah.
when they're together, connecting rod.
So you also have to check the side to side and make sure it's centered inside of the beam and cap.
Yeah, and they're very critical on like making sure that that little, there's like a pinched edge, making sure that that is tight in that corner. Like you don't want to see a gap at all.
Yeah.
Like you want it tight in there. So
Next up is checking our clearances of our bearing with a plasti gauge. And what it is, it comes in a package like this. It looks like a piece of floss on the inside. I cut off a little piece because you don't want to pull it to break it loose. There it is. Nice little piece of floss. It's made out of plastic, and what it's made to do, you place it on the oh God!
No, it's gone now. Oh,
I
it's
got it
in
right
a
there.
puddle of dirt. And...
I think we're gonna get a new piece.
Wait a minute. No, I think we're good.
Oh my god.
Fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a new piece, and I'm going to try not to drop it this time. All right, so I got a new piece of plasti gauge here. we're going to very carefully grab it.
Don't show off.
Where'd it go? Oh my God. So, I've got a third piece here that I cut off. Thank you, John. We're gonna open it up. I never even saw me drop that piece.
Oh, we saw it.
Did you?
I mean, this camera did.
There it is.
Okay.
Where is it?
Right here.
Okay.
I'm just gonna put it in the bottom one here. We're gonna install dot to dot. There's a little dot right there on the cap, and there's a matching dot on the crankshaft. Or not the crankshaft, on the beam. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna install the rod bolts, and you're supposed to lubricate it, and we're gonna tighten it to spec. That's with our torque wrench. And then we're going to take it loose and we're going to measure the squishiness of the
plastic gauge.
Plastic gauge.
Because that's going to tell us our oil clearance between the rod bearing and the crankshaft. Because too much clearance, you're going to have a knocking sound, and not enough clearance, you're going to have excessive heat, wear, and probably lock it up. And then, it probably will knock after that, so, or before it. But
first step is to tighten it. Now, this is the first step of the torque steps. We're going to tighten it to 60 inch-pounds. And what I like to do is I like to do a little bit there, do a little bit there. So actually, that's more than the first step. This is actually several. But that's because I'm me. So I totally misread this. This starts at 120 inch-pounds. I was at 600. But I didn't even...
Wow, I'm so sorry.
Spit right in my face.
oh,
I didn't even come
God.
close.
Are you okay?
I didn't even come close to it. I was alternating.
Okay, I know.
I was feeling it out.
Oh, you were feeling it out, all right.
What's the final?
Not 600.
Okay, what is it?
150.
150. So how many different steps do they give us? Is it 3 different steps?
It says to start at 60 inch-pounds.
Yeah.
Once, then alternate back and forth between the bolts, adding 20 inch-pound increments, and then you reach up to 150.
I was close, wasn't I? Did you see it turn some? Watch. That one didn't. But
that one might be a little too.
Oh, it's all right.
That's all
That
right.
one's 152 inch-pounds.
Oh, that
It
one
does
that
say.
One, yep. Oh, I feel it though. It's right there. All right. So the next step is to back off, and we're going to take her down. Yeah.
Whoa.
We're going to take her down to 100. And then we're going to come right back up to 170 because we're using engine oil in steps.
It says to
And
tighten
20 inch-pound increments.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So now that we've gone down to 100 inch-pounds, we're going back up to 170 inch-pounds in 20 inch-pound increments. The reason 170 is because we used engine oil rather than what Molly
Yeah, Molly assembly lube.
assembly lube. So we're doing the 20 inch-pound increments up to 170. So now we're going to back it off, take it apart, and we're going to check our oil clearance.
And remember, don't try and rock it. This is not
Don't
that.
rock
It's a clamp down and then unclamp test.
And this is all stuff you can do while it's in the engine. We're doing it here just so you can see better.
Yeah.
And y'all can get a laugh at us doing this on this dirty table.
Okay, that one looks good.
Okay, so it's going to be on the bottom one. That's right.
There it is. So you see the squish. I hate that it's that close to the oil hole, but it moved there. Okay, so you take this and you compare it to the, I got .002, boys.
Well, it says you want .0025 to .0023. So that means it's tight.
It's tight, but we're good.
Gonna work.
Yeah,
All right.
we're good. So now I've got to clean off this plastic, because that's what it is. And we're gonna lube everything up with we got some Molly here, don't we?
Yeah.
We're gonna use our Molly grease and install this thing in the engine. And then we'll move on to the camshaft after this.
And make sure
Yeah.
to get that off the crankshaft.
Yes.
'Cause it's
Gotta polish this thing off.
So
are you doing?
our new rod is prepped and ready to go, but
Yeah.
we still need to remove the old one.
That's right. So you got to be very careful with this. Normally, well, you know, probably the majority of y'all out there are going to be replacing this rod by removing the head. I'm going to show you how I do it without removing the head on the engine. And you got to be very careful, because I have at one time pulled it down so far that the rings.
the oiler ring poked out.
Oh
didn't
yeah,
it?
you were there, weren't you?
No, I watched it.
Isn't that
That
that's
was
the-
when I
is
was
that
still
not the
a
ring?
fan.
It's not the ring. That's what you're trying to remove.
Yeah. Very carefully.
I'm so
Just
sorry.
stabbed my finger.
I sharpened this pick tool to make sure we could get the governor thing out.
Yeah, you got me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's the snap ring, and I'm going to place it here on the table where I'm probably going to knock it and it's going to fall out. I stick my pinky in the wrist pin and I try to pull it out.
Wiggle. Oh. Wiggle the beam.
Oh man, it's right there.
There you go. Nice.
That's good. All right.
Light mayonnaise.
What is that?
I don't know. I couldn't.
I don't
I
know.
thought that was Molly.
No.
Isn't this white lithium grease?
I don't know what I grabbed. Who said grab it?
I said Molly lube. So the rod, and you got to make sure it's in there in the same direction that it was, the other one came out. If you know what I'm saying. You can put these in upside down, and you're going to be very unhappy.
So what he's saying is, pretend this is the billet rod. See how, if you look at the beam, see how this end is longer than that end? That is the bottom. That's where you want it in the engine, this towards the bottom of the crankcase. Not like that.
Yep, that's right.
That'll be bad.
All right. Got to put this snap ring in and shove that piston back in the hole. Look at that. Didn't even have to remove the head. So we're going to be putting the crankshaft in the hole.
After we wipe it down again.
I did wipe it down.
Yeah.
Now for this, you gotta hold your tongue just
Oh, yeah.
right and your toes.
Why my toes?
Look at
We're going to add some assembly lube to the bearings. Assembly lube. So now we're going to be installing the cap. Being very careful. Making sure the bolts go in nice and easy, and they are. It's the next day. We had to stop on this because our torque wrench, the head is a 3/8, and our socket was just too big. So we overnighted from, I want to say Japan, but wherever.
The Bezos boutique.
Amazon. We overnighted from Amazon a 1/4-inch drive torque wrench. Thank you very much. It's still a little early in the morning. With the correct range and size, and this is going to be beautiful. We're able to use it in the block for our torquing of the rod. So we're going to be putting links in the description for this torque wrench because it fits and it works fantastic.
So you can check it out for yourself if you don't have one, or if you're not sure, yours won't fit.
So we were just comparing camshafts. I know we've showed it before, but here's to your right, my left. This one right here is the factory Tillotson cam, and this one right here is the aftermarket cam. You can tell the difference in the lobes right there, how fat this one is compared to that one. That holds the valve open for a longer duration, lets more fuel and air go in, and of course the exhaust side, more air and fuel to go out. Another thing I noticed, which was really cool, we've been discussing this for the past couple of minutes, is you know, deburring and stuff, the new parts. We just noticed that the Tillotson camshaft, the edges right here, have been beveled, cleaned up real nice. That is that Tillotson quality. This camshaft, you can see the edges where they've been machined. It is very sharp, and you can clean up the edges with like a razor blade or whatever, and you get material off of it. This is material that is not going to be going into your engine if you just kind of touch it up a little bit.
Maybe we should cover it because you're just like scraping in the direction of the open engine too.
You should not be scraping in the area of the open engine.
Do as we say, not as we do. So there's nothing wrong with the actual performance part. It's pretty much your duty as the builder to finish this last step. We've never done it in the past. I've probably installed 5 camshafts myself and never done this, and it was such a surprise when I was told about going the extra step and prolonging the life of the engine by removing just any excess metal, and it just keeps the oil clean, keeps the engine happy. So nothing wrong with the part, just, you know, install it and have fun.
So I cleaned up the machined edges. It's feeling a lot better. Now be careful with whatever you're cleaning it up with. You don't want to scratch any of the surface here because it could add
Accelerated wear,
accelerated wear, etc., etc. So we are ready to install the camshaft. I've got to install our lifter tappets, whatever you want to call them.
They're under this.
Yes, they are under here.
Oh, I tried keeping everything
Yeah,
covered.
so we kept everything covered up and in the way we took it apart. So, hey. So we're going to be adding this assembly lube. I just can't get over, it looks just like white lithium grease. And that stuff is probably 50 years old, so you know it's really good stuff. Oh, I'm one tooth off.
Would that be
There we go.
advanced or less advanced?
That would have been advanced timing on the
Okay.
camshaft. Yep. So earlier we were talking about getting your cam timing right. This is what we're talking about. We have a dot there on the crankshaft sprocket, and we've got a dot here on the camshaft sprocket, and you see the dots line up. This is in time. And that is not in time. So we're going to go back.
So it's late.
This will be
So it's
retarded
late.
timing. It's late. That one's in time. So make sure the dots line up, guys. We're going to talk about gaskets. This gasket did not tear. In most cases, we would put this right back on the engine, maybe with just the tiniest little dab of silicone or dry. This one would have been fine just going back on. But in the case of if the gasket tears,
Oops.
whoops, we're going to show you how to replace this gasket and put it on this engine. I like to get a razor blade.
And be careful.
Yeah, and be very careful. I pull off the torn gasket as much as I can, carefully, because sometimes you can pull these off without tearing them. This one has got a few little tears left behind, and I'm going to get a razor blade and I'm going to remove it. You clean this up, and just like if you were going to be putting the old gasket back on, you just want to make sure there's no grit or anything in between. Just like me cleaning this surface, I don't want any grit to go in between the new gasket and the sealing surface. So now that we've got everything installed and lubricated, we've got a brand new gasket that comes with the kit. And we have our freshly cleaned side cover. Everything's clean and straight, so I'm not going to be adding any type of like silicone, because if it's clean and you do the correct torque, it shouldn't leak at all. So side cover's going on. Going to be installing these 6 bolts. And we're going to be torquing them down. Like I said, we're going to start at like 5 foot-pounds. I've got a couple of different like online torque specs. I got 5 foot-pounds, and then I got 17. I think the 17 foot-pounds is way too much. So we're gonna go with 5, and I'm gonna see what I think, and I'll let y'all know if it feels good or not. So
or you could just break out the elbow torque wrench.
And we are tightening up the side cover in like a X pattern to 5 foot-pounds, 60 inch-pounds. And I don't know, I think I could go tighter than that. Since I'm not quite sure on these torque specs, you know, I'm going to do a little bit more research. So I'm going to send you over to our mixologist, John. John?
How we doing, folks? I'm the resident Cars and Cameras mixologist, Johnny Johnson. Today we're going to be making up a cocktail for this Tillotson 212. All of my Tillotsons back home in Jersey love this recipe. They can't get enough. It's both refreshing and it's going to prolong the life of your camshaft and just make your motor happy. So here's the ingredients list. We got a quart of Tillotson 4-stroke oil. We got a container of this ZDDP oil treatment additive, and we're gonna need a little bit of Lucas oil stabilizer as well. Of course, we got a garnish and a little bit of citrus we're gonna be adding. So the oil capacity on the Tillotson 212 is 600 milliliters. So we're gonna start with about 550 milliliters of the Tillotson 212 4-stroke oil. Let's see here. Usually I do it by feel to taste. You know, every engine's different. They like it a little bit different. So we're gonna go to about 550 milliliters. Then we're gonna add 1 shot glass of ZDDP zinc additive. It equals out to about 1.5 ounces, or about 50 milliliters. Now this stuff is thick, and you gotta be careful with it because it is strong. Your engine is gonna be, well, you're gonna feel it. Your engine's not gonna be safe to drive after too much of this ZDDP additive, but it is thick. You know what you can do? You can rinse out your shot glass with a little bit more engine oil just to get everything in there. Now we're gonna add just a splash of Lucas oil stabilizer. This is really optional. This is just depending on your audience, who you're making it for exactly. But just, you know, just a splash for good measure. So the Tillotson 212 engine oil is great by itself, but just for that extra level of protection on your camshaft, your flat tappets, and other places of potential friction, the ZDDP is really good stuff. It's very sticky and it sticks to those friction areas that can potentially cause wear. So we have it all in our mixing glass here. We're gonna pour it. We're gonna mix it up. Because that ZDDP, it does require a little bit of mixing in. Folding in, they call it in baking, but I don't know, my other cousin does baking. I'm a mixologist. We like to garnish with whatever's fresh from the garden. And just for a little bit of added taste, when it goes in the motor, I like to grab a little bit of citrus. Got a nice clementine here. I love clementines. Good source of vitamin C. Good mid-afternoon pick-me-up. Anyway, just get some juices flowing and put it around the rim like that. Yummy, yummy. Let's pour it in the motor. This thing's gonna be juiced up.
Thanks for that, Johnny. Back to me and more research. I've come to the conclusion that it's the 17 foot-pounds on the side cover, because 5 foot-pounds just didn't seem like enough. So we're going with the 17. I also found some people doing 20, but feeling this right now, I think 17 is safe. All right, so I'm doing an X pattern, and it feels nice and tight now. Doesn't feel excessive. It's funny how online you can find all different torque specs for the same thing.
So next step, after you've gotten your side cover torqued, you're gonna wanna finish up putting together your valve train, because just in case you end up dropping something down in there and you have to open your engine back up, you don't wanna spill all that oil that you just mixed up. So let's see. So we've got our push rods marked out. We had them marked for the bottom end and for the, I guess, the rocker arm. Now what I'm doing is I'm trying to find down here in the base of the block, you can find there's a spot where the push rod goes. That's the top of the lifter that Ike installed.
And most likely we're gonna have to readjust the gap.
Yeah, we're gonna have to readjust our valve lash. But
Yes.
so now, and once you get the push rod down in the lifter, like where the lifter groove is, because there's a few spots that you can end up catching that push rod, and you want to make sure it's in the right spot. So now that it's in there, push the valve spring down and get it into this little groove right here.
That easy.
And repeat the process for this side. I'd say the valve lash is out on this one.
I think it's fine. So now we got to check our valve lash. Our Mod 2 cam says that it needs 3/1000 valve lash on the intake and exhaust. And of course we are very loose here. So we're going to be using a 9mm wrench to loosen the lock nut. And honestly, I can probably use my fingers for the adjuster. So I'm going to turn it until we get some drag there. And then I'm going to lock this thing down. And I still have drag.
But not too much.
Nope. You can see it goes in and out with a little bit of drag.
You need to make sure your engine's still on top dead center.
This one's on top dead center. Thank you.
Who made me a glass of sweet tea? Sweet.
Does it have a garnish in it? Stay away from it.
I'm glad I gave it the sniff test.
So I've got the intake and the exhaust adjusted, and they feel fantastic. Let's reinstall the flywheel.
Oh, the window. It's like that.
It was headed straight for the old windows.
A horror movie.
Reinstalling the flywheel. Right there. Got to make sure it's on the key. Yep, the key is still there. So I've got the flywheel on. We have to put our blades on, and then we have our
Starter cup.
and it goes in a certain way right there.
Only one way.
Only one way. And I put this, was it 13/64?
What?
13/16 nut on. Now, the torque spec on this is going to be, I'm putting it at 54 foot-pounds. So, Charles, if you would, can you jam that screwdriver in here and hold that flywheel?
Yep.
All right, 54 shouldn't be too much. You ready?
Yep.
Here we go.
Oh dear, hold on. Let me.
I got it.
All right. Okay.
That's it.
Cool.
To install this coil, we're actually going to use a business card, fold it in half, and we're going to put it between the coil and the flywheel and install our screws. If you have a billet flywheel, the gap is going to be a lot larger. They will tell you in the directions what to go for. I think it's something really between 30 and 60 thousandths is going to be what they recommend. All right. Now, and the torque is 1 amp. All right, so we got our coil installed, our flywheel tight. Now it's time for the side cover.
And then once they're all 4 in, tighten them up.
So I've been going through our assortment of springs. We've got to install a return spring on this engine because you don't want to crank this thing up without the idle return spring. Otherwise, so earlier in the video we showed the linkage that was inside the case coming out, hooking up to this linkage right here. So when you crank this thing up, the governor that is no longer in there will push out on this lever just like this, taking this thing to idle.
Yeah, it's returning the carburetor flap to idle.
Yes. Without it, you got like half throttle right now.
So it'll start up and run and stay at that RPM
Yeah.
as it rides off into the sunset.
And you might wind up hurting yourself or blowing the thing up. So you got to add a return spring.
And you know what? Add 2 if you're worried about it, because there's nothing wrong with a backup.
And you can't go too strong with the spring because we still do have a spring on the throttle. I've seen people put a solid...
I've made mine a little too stiff before, and the twist grip I had quite a bit of resistance on that. So
that too. So you got to pick a nice soft return spring.
Basically, we're just gonna hook it in one of these holes right here,
Yep.
and pull it forward.
Yep.
The opposite direction of wide open.
Either this hole or like that hole, and I go right to the side cover. But that's, you know, when you go to remove the side cover, see, there it goes.
Here, let's see. Give it.
It's working.
But I'm returning.
I'm not real confident in that spring, so I'm going to be changing the location. But you get an idea of what you're going to have to do. Spring and hook it up somewhere, pull in this direction.
So next on the list, and it's very important, you want to make sure not to forget to add your engine oil. So I've tilted ours back just to make the pouring process a little easier.
Oh, you got some tea there?
Yeah, some
of that North Carolina sweet tea?
No, this is from Rick's. This is Texas tea.
Drink it, I dare you.
I mean it.
You know, I had a buddy
it
of
won't
mine.
hurt me. I've seen some. No, don't do it.
Don't drink it.
Do it. It'll really hurt you.
So we got the engine put together. We're going to pull it over a couple of times to make sure we don't hear any noises that we don't like. And then we're going to install it back on the bike and fire it up for the first time. I can't wait to be riding this thing. Oh, that's good. So the engine's on the bike. I got to say, I'm pretty excited to hear this thing run. We're going to take this over to that Miata. We're going to put it up against the Miata to fire it up because we have messed with the governor, eliminating it on this bike. We don't want any runaway bikes. So we're going to run this on the factory carburetor and see how it performs. We're going to take it out and see how it does. I'm thinking it's going to do better. And then we're going to put the optional 22 millimeter carburetor on it and run it again and show if there's much performance gains with that. So let's get this over here and fire it up.
How many pulls?
How many pulls? One.
All right.
The snicker behind the.
No. I was just watching you struggle with that fuel cutoff.
No,
or
that
the
wasn't the fuel
choke.
cutoff. That was the choke.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was making sure the
It
choke
works.
was on. Yeah.
All right. So.
One pull.
So one pull, like, all right.
One pull. Got to make sure all the switches are on and stuff. All right, here we go. No, that doesn't count.
I think we need to idle it up.
We need to idle it up a little bit, and we need to take it outside, and we need to do some laps with it to break in this camshaft. So some nice easy runs, warm it up, all that stuff, and then we'll do the hot lap.
Sounds good.
Yep.
Yeah, because remember, if it doesn't break, we're in. That's the break-in procedure. And I will say, breaking the engine in on the bike, riding it around the way he's doing, you keeping it at a steady speed, steady RPM. Don't put it on under too much load. It should be just fine.
Now that the break-in procedure is complete, we're going to be ready for a hot lap.
So our new parts should be nice and broken in. Charles is going to hop on and get a feel for the new power band, and we're each going to do 3 or 4 warm-up laps before our hot laps, just so we know we're getting a good, honest comparison for our hot laps.
Yep. And I figured while we were out there testing, we would try out the new Cars and Cameras Gator because of the extra dust and all the pollen this time of the year. I really think this is going to help give me the extra edge to, you know, be on top of the list.
Yeah, you can check out these gators on our website, cars-cameras.com. They're Mini Mayhem themed, which is our event coming up May 13th, 2023. Help keep the dust out of your face and lungs, and it's a great way to support Cars and Cameras. You ready?
Oh yeah. A little bit of throttle. Way more powerful. Ooh, the throttle stuck on that. I think that was my leg. Yeah. We need to trim that. I think my pants got stuck. Oh, and the wheelies are so manageable. This thing's sweet. Let's see, is he ready? He wants to.
Oh!
I think I'm ready for a couple practice laps.
All right.
Dude, the wheelies are nice on this.
Yeah.
If you just let the bike do the work, it's a subtle one. But if you pull up on it, then you're kind of in control, and that's when it really can get out of control, but the power is there.
Sweet.
It's
Yeah,
spinning
man.
a little bit, but no big deal. That's just the power. Come on, baby. Woo! I'm all over the place.
I think Charles is going to be a lot faster. He looks a lot more confident,
Oh, I know he's going to be faster.
and the bike has a lot more straight line speed.
the bike does way better. But there's some things that we can do to it, I think, that can make it even better beyond the 1.5 kit. Just simple little things.
I agree.
We'll talk about it.
Definitely caught some air on that one.
Across the line.
Dog are in good that time.
While we're waiting, let's see if we can drink water through this thing. Yep, I don't recommend it, but it works.
There's Isaac across the line. Yes, no good. There we go. Whole lot of brakes. Whoa, too much brakes.
On the bike, they're just so low,
Yeah.
and when you take the tight corners,
Yep.
it just digs in, and it
That's a lot of speed right there. It's a lot of speed for trees.
Nice.
what do you think?
Boy, she's quicker.
Yeah, definitely quicker.
We need to put it in proof on the board, but it's quicker. Especially it's kind of the same at the very top end, but the 0 to 70% throttle, that's
Right.
a good chunk of difference.
It feels way better on the bottom end.
You're
that's for sure.
definitely entering corners faster than you were before. I'm
Yep.
having to relearn these brakes because
Yep.
we're entering with more speed. So our before testing with a Megamoto 212 with a Tillotson 212 with a Stage 1 kit, we averaged a 105.37 between the three of us. So after, on our Stage 1.5 kit as we're calling it, what did Mr. Isaac run?
His fastest time was a
Okay,
1:03.23.
okay, okay. So
Not-
that's
2-3.
over a second faster. So you were faster than I was. All right. All right, Mr. Charles. Oh, no, I'm up next.
All right, your time, sir, was a 1
Yep.
0
Yep.
3 2 4.
You got. I was 1/100th behind you. Okay, Charles, up next.
We're gonna have to go. We're gonna have to call the weatherman and tell him to hold off on the storm.
So Mr. Charles ran a.
1
Yep.
0
Okay.
5
Okay.
47.
All right, some improvements.
That's 2 seconds. About 2 seconds.
I had the
faster.
most improvement, but the slowest time.
All right, so
Aha!
we're gonna average these times and let you know what's up next. Okay, so our Stage 1 average was a 105.37, and our Stage 1.5 average after installing the billet rod, the Mod 2 camshaft, the new spark plug, was a 103.98. So that's an improvement of almost 1.5 seconds. And Isaac probably could have gone faster, but the pegs are starting to dig into the dirt.
Yeah.
So we're reaching some other limitations of the bike, but I think that the usable power band is significantly better. So we have one more trick up our sleeves for this machine. We are going to throw a 22 millimeter carburetor, round slide carburetor, at this setup to see if it will go any faster. So the Stage 1.5 kit is designed to be flexible, whether you have a Stage 1 kit already, whether you have a bone stock engine already, or whether you want to skip Stage 1 altogether and go straight to the 22 millimeter carburetor. There are options in the drop down that can fit your needs. Because all of these parts are going to be usable if you want to keep building the bike. Like Charles had this set up on his Dirt Hog, and from here he was able to keep adding parts to it, making it quicker. And we have some suggestions at the end of the video that we're going to be getting to. But anyway, let's throw on this new carburetor and see if it gets any quicker. Ike is removing the factory carburetor, and I have the 22 millimeter round slide replacement. So in the kit comes a air filter, a 22 millimeter round slide Go Power Sports branded carburetor. This is not a genuine Mikuni carburetor, and the price certainly reflects it. Bang for buck, this is the better option versus the Mikuni. It also comes with an intake manifold. So we're hoping for a bump in power. We might not, especially because we're reaching some other limitations of the bike, but throttle feel will certainly be much better. I'm hoping we see another small bump in our lap time, or reduction in lap time.
And here's a tech tip. This is a, let's see, what size is it? Is it worn off? Oh boy. It's a 5 millimeter.
Really?
5 millimeter Allen wrench for the hardware that's provided with the 22 kit. And I trimmed down the, I guess the foot. This would be the leg, this is the foot. I trim it down, take like a 1/4 inch off of it.
So it'll fit in between.
And it allows it to, after you get those threaded in by hand, you can pretty much guaranteed to get this in there and get those nice and tight. And remember to tighten them evenly.
Yep, the kit comes with new gaskets, all the hardware required. We like to add a little bit more fuel line and add our own fuel cutoff there. You are going to need to buy a Mikuni style throttle cable that I'll link in the video description.
Yep. So now I've got to take out the original style throttle cable, and I'm going to be installing a brand new throttle cable. The nice thing about switching over to the 22 millimeter carburetor is we are able to remove this bracket.
That's what it looks like. That thing always reminded me of a chicken leg.
Chicken leg?
Yeah, it looks like a chicken leg. But anyway.
I've never seen it.
No, okay, dude.
I'll tell you what.
This whole time.
No, and I'll tell you what, that I'm really glad that we are removing that, because I don't know about you guys, but when I was going around the track, when I tucked my leg in, my pant leg was getting caught on the metal flap.
Oh, yeah.
So what I would recommend, if you are still running the plate, trim that thing off, because that flap is basically there for the intended purpose of these engines, like on a log splitter or something, so you can rev it up and like lock the throttle down. So pretty much as soon as it goes on a mini bike, that thing needs to get away. So that way you don't have a stuck throttle like I did at the what is it, the finish line. You'll see on camera. It took me for a donut there. I was like, I'm along for the ride on this one.
You're gonna want to leave your spring, right? Or it doesn't matter.
It doesn't actually matter, because we trimmed the foot off the lever. But if you haven't trimmed the foot off the lever of your governor arm, while your engine's running, if that thing swings like 180 or whatever, it'll get into the rotating assembly. Trust me, I've heard the noise. It's not fun.
What did it sound like, Charles?
It sounded like jamming a screwdriver into a running engine.
Well, what does that sound
What
like?
does that sound
I
like?
don't. I'm not convinced. He's gonna mess with me as soon as I get ready to put this together. He's gonna pull the cake. You see this guy. I'm not gonna do the kid with the garden hose. Like, where's the water? You can't get me. The Three Stooges.
You are a stooge.
We are the Three Stooges.
We are.
Oh, goodness.
We got Curly.
Yep.
Was that?
You got me. It's really important that you choose the routing of the cable just right, because if it gets too close to the exhaust, when you run it, you're going to melt the throttle cable, and it may not give you issues at first, but eventually it's going to be giving you some sort of an issue. So however you route it, you're going to have to like zip tie it into a good position. So now that Charles has got the throttle installed, first thing that needs to go on this end is going to be the cap to the 22 millimeter, and you have to run the cable through it all the way until it bottoms out. Then we have a spring, and what I'd like to do is I like to compress the spring, and then I hold the spring down with my thumb and I pinch the inner cable. Then we have a little line right here in the slide. You put the barrel of the cable in right there and pop the spring loose right there. Next thing you're going to do is, now this barrel only fits in one way. So you have a little slot here that usually goes to the idle adjustment screw. So if it's on this side on the carburetor, this installs this way. If it's on this side, it'll install the other way. There is also a slot the whole way. This is going to be a little guide that keeps the barrel from twisting, and there's a little notch on the inside of the carburetor. So you kind of turn this around until it locks in. You push it down and you put the cap on. Another thing you really ought to do is you need to, Charles is helping me out with it, you got to make sure your throttle is returning into the idle position.
Listen to that.
It bottoms out.
It bottoms out. And
we have full throttle.
Yep, and there's a little bit of wiggle at the throttle cable showing that there's
we got some room for
some
adjustment.
Yeah, we could
for
honestly
adjustment.
adjust it out of that.
Yeah,
some.
we can adjust it some.
But that's more or less what you want.
Yep. Another thing, you got to hook up your fuel line. And we even have a fuel line clamp installed,
Cool.
ready to go.
Well, let's run some laps.
I've always thought, like, sometimes I try and push myself too hard, and I end up making myself slower.
Yeah.
Almost the conservative lap is better. But I don't know.
Yeah,
You do
yeah.
whatever.
Very good.
Yep.
A lot of brakes. Cut off.
Hey! You did pretty good! What happened? Did you cut it off?
My thumb hit the kill switch.
Oh, poo.
For the final test results on the Stage 1.5 kit, the 22 mil carburetor, and our overall thoughts in general. The Megamoto 212, the Megamoto 212 with just the Stage 1 kit months ago when we finally got it together was a 105. Ow, it's hot.
You're right, look.
Oh my god.
Did it burn through your pants?
No, it's been there.
Oh.
All right, so before we did all these mods, it ran a 105.93.
All right.
So Isaac had the fastest time out of all of our testing, and with the Megamoto Stage 1.5 plus the 22 mil carburetor, he ran a 102.83. So that's like 3 seconds faster.
Pushing it across the line.
No, this wasn't pushing it.
That was pushing it.
That was the pushing. Yeah.
I'm gonna put a P for push next to it.
Okay.
So that lands you in 14th place on the Grand Prix leaderboard.
Top 15!
No, 15th place.
Top 15!
To my surprise, the 22 mil carburetor shaved off almost an entire second compared to the stock carburetor configuration. So it is worth it for more than just the throttle feel and throttle response. There is going to be a power difference there. From here, a couple of good mods that this bike desperately needs would be tires.
Yeah.
Better tires if you're going to be doing some racy type stuff like this. A good cheap modification that would make a big performance difference would be much shorter gearing. So you can get a 9-tooth sprocket on the rear of your torque converter compared to the 10-tooth, or you could do a 60-tooth rear sprocket compared to, well, maybe a 48 or whatever's factory on this thing.
53.
53? Okay. So I'll link all those parts down in the description. This engine, it doesn't have the oomph to get it to that.
The RPM at the top end.
Exactly.
And that's where the power is going to be at on this engine.
So I hope you guys enjoyed this build, some engine building, a little bit of backyard scientific research.
A little wipeout.
And go pick up the Stage 1.5 kit for your Tillotson 212 if you liked what you saw in this video. We're actually giving away a brand new Tillotson 212 engine complete with a Stage 1.5 kit with the 22 millimeter carburetor right now on our website, cars-cameras.com. For every $5 spent on our merchandise, gets you one entry to win. It's a great way to support Cars and Cameras, great way to get your hands on some high quality merchandise, and you get entered to win at the same time. You can check out the full rules on our website, cars-cameras.com. But until then, check out the parts at a link in the description. We'll see you next time. Advil time. Really?
You okay?
I need to lay down.
Oh, boy.
That's why we wear all this crazy safety gear, even though it's only mini bikes, because when we have wipeouts, we have to get back to work. We'll give them a few minutes. Hey again, guys, if you made it this far into the video, I just wanted to say thank you again for watching. We're still settling into this once-a-week posting schedule, and we really need your help. I want you to write down in the video comments what you liked about this episode and what maybe you didn't like about the episode. Was the length a good thing? Or was it a bad thing? It was certainly a lot of fun to put together. It was a new angle of going into the amount of detail that we did, but it was a monster to put together and edit. So I'd love your honest opinion on the edit, on the content, and so on and so forth, what you're thinking so far of this once-a-week posting schedule. One final note on the Stage 1.5 kit is that every Stage 1.5 kit sold gets shipped with a really cool custom-branded Cars and Cameras Go Power Sports shop rag, as well as a co-branded custom Cars and Cameras Go Power Sports sticker. So if you order a Stage 1.5 kit from Go Power Sports, it'll come with the rag and the sticker. They're so hot off the press that they didn't come with our kit when we shot the episode. We have the Pate Swap Meet coming up, the Texas Motor Speedway next weekend. In classic Cars and Cameras fashion, we are throwing together a completely custom motorcycle engine project to bring down there. That video will be out next Wednesday. Of course, we have Mini Mayhem coming up May 13th. The Mini Mayhem Facebook group is really gaining momentum. It's really cool to see all the projects people are posting on there that they're getting together for the event. And the weekend after that, May 20th, we're going to be back down at Go Power Sports for the first ever pull start picnic mini bike show. Anyway, there's a lot going on. Thank you all for your continued support. We certainly had fun making this longer form content and going into the amount of detail that we did. But again, I would love your thoughts. So leave a thumbs up, pick up some merchandise to enter our giveaway. We'll see you next time.
You missed a spot, Charles.
It actually doesn't bother. Oh,
Isn't this like a manicure?
Manny and a petty. Here we go.